In The Net Tonight, an exclusive insight into the interactive art of Jeffery Shaw. The lowdown on viruses. Do you really need protection, or is it all just media hype? Plus, our games review with Jules, the collectors who chronicle computing's milestones and getting wired in Herefordshire with the connected community of the future.
Interactive art in general is it's seductive. I don't mind a little bit of technological seduction, as a way to sort of call attention, a sort of little factor, it looks good.
In the 1960s, the artist Jeffery Shaw created floating inflatable sculptures. In the 70s, he designed laser shows for the rock group Genesis. And in the 80s, he began to work with computers and interactive installations. Today, he's recognized as one of the world's leading digital artists.
I identify myself with a certain generation, 60s generation. I shared with many others this sort of disillusion of the bourgeois relation of art with its public. And I, like many others, looked for other strategies to bring art back to life. A legible city offers the viewer a bicycle as an interface. A bicycle fixed on the floor, but one is able to pedal and use the steering wheel. And the bicycle is connected directly to a computer graphics system which is able to generate real-time 3D graphic information on the screen. One is able to bicycle in this new, let's say, virtual city of text. As soon as one gets on the bicycle, almost immediately, you understand how the work works. It's generally a very important issue, I think, for such works, that there is an elegant strategy to involve the viewer. The Virtual Museum was a work which I made not long after The Legible City. The notion is that one is able to travel in a synthetic museum. In this case, in a kind of ironic way, it's a museum that looks very familiar. It has seems to have stone walls and a parquet floor. It looks like any museum. In fact, even the exhibits are fairly sort of traditional. There's a room of paintings, a room of sculptures. In the third room, I wanted to evoke the cinematic experience. I used Japanese haiku moving through the room, and I texture mapped Muybridge figures, one row of male and one row of female Muybridge figures. And in the fourth room, I wanted to say, okay, now we're in the world, now we're in a room of completely the synthetic image, the computer generated virtual reality. The fifth room shows the machine. It shows the platform, the monitor, the chair, and the machine extends this museum, in fact, infinitely. I mean, this museum has 4 rooms, but there's no limit to how many rooms one could create. There's no doubt that in this digital domain, there are incredible possibilities, and I also feel that for an artist there is the excitement of indeed discovering, identifying, exploring, inventing new worlds.
Computer viruses have been bugging users ever since the first ones emerged from the digital underground 8 years ago. Viruses are bits of software code that can creep into your system and clone themselves. At the most harmless, they can just produce pretty pictures on your screen, but at their most pernicious, they can destroy all your data. Now, in the last few weeks, a new virus has been released from the computer subterranea, which has put virus busters on red alert.
The latest virus on the scene is called pathogen or SMEG, depending on which naming convention you want to follow. It's quite a nasty virus. On Monday evenings, it attempts to overwrite part of your hard drive and destroys the contents, displaying a message taken from, I think, Red Dwarf.
The message claims that it was written in the UK, not in Bulgaria, and the reason he says that is because so many viruses were written in Bulgaria. And it says copyright 93-94, The Black Baron, and quite nice to know who the Black Baron is.
Traditionally, computer viruses have spread through users sharing floppy disks, but nowadays viruses are just as likely to be passed on via computer networks. Alan Solomon, one of Britain's most prominent virus hunters, has to make sure that his infected computers are kept completely isolated, effectively in quarantine.
There's two important things about SMEG.pathogen. The first is that it's in the wild, real users actually having a problem with the real virus, and in the case of most viruses, they're not in the wild. Secondly, it's intensely polymorphic. That means that no two instances of the virus have any bytes in common between them, and every time the virus makes another copy of itself, it's presenting like a different face to the world, and this makes it a lot harder to write the code that's going to detect it. One of the ways that the virus author released the virus was he deliberately infected some files and uploaded them to bulletin boards, and even though these bulletin boards are using some kind of antivirus software, because it's a new virus, the software is not going to detect SMEG.pathogen, so anybody who downloads one of those infected files now finds the virus spreading on their computer.
Some of the virus writers say they write viruses because it's their freedom to do so. They can do it, it's not illegal, so they'll do it. Some of the virus writers say, well, we want to learn about computers, we want to learn about what's going on inside, so they decide to write a virus. I think a lot of the viruses that we write, it's just like electronic graffiti. They want to see their little tag up there in lights, they want to see how far their little creation gets around the world. It's the same mentality.
But virus authors say that their work isn't just some form of digital graffiti. No virus writer can reveal his or her true identity because although creating a virus isn't a crime, infecting someone else's computer with one is.
We have, though, been able to get in touch with Mark Ludwig via electronic mail. Mark is a leading American virus writer who has also written several books on the subject, which have been banned from being published in this country. Mark, it seems, has some strong views on the antivirus lobby.
The closed-mindedness of the antivirus lobby is the real menace to society. Their paradigm for the future is Orwellian. Mine is that of the open-minded and curious explorer. Computer viruses can teach people who want to learn a lot. Some of the programming techniques originally used by virus writers are extremely creative and useful in ordinary systems-level programming. Likewise, I believe we can learn a lot about science, specifically biology and evolution, if we approach viruses properly.
Although the Mark Ludwigs of this world may give some virus detectors sleepless nights, that sense of fascination in viral programs is also shared by many in the antivirus community.
With the SMEG.pathogen virus, when you're taking any virus apart, you tend to get a feel, which is very difficult to quantify, about the technical capability and the thinking of the person that wrote it. That virus particularly, when I took it apart, gave me a feeling that someone was aiming very specifically at areas that antivirus software generally attempts to monitor. But that gives me a smell that either someone who is extremely knowledgeable about antivirus software has written it, or someone that is actually involved in antivirus software has written it, maybe as a test, Or someone that was involved and is now disenchanted has done it as a revenge attack, maybe.
The last time there was such a commotion over a computer virus was on the 6th of March 1992, Michelangelo's birthday. An antiviral software company from the States whipped up such a frenzy over the so-called Michelangelo virus that the media got caught up in the hype. In the event, there were hardly any infections at all, and critics say the same thing could happen now.
The Michelangelo virus is a good example of things getting blown out of proportion, which I think's happened with pathogen as well. With the Michelangelo virus, a few people said maybe some things which they shouldn't, and a few quotes were taken completely out of context. If I said there may be 500 cases, there may be 5 million, which figure would the press print? There is a certain amount of cynicism after the Michelangelo incident because a few vendors went out there and said the world's going to end, and of course nothing happened at all. But there is a genuine problem, but it's nothing that anybody needs to panic about.
I think there's general agreement amongst the antivirus community that if we could come up with a word from scratch now, it wouldn't be virus. There's various schools of thought. The word weed is a nice one because they spring up where you don't want them, but they're easy enough to cut down, but more spring up, so you just have to keep. And maybe you even buy yourself some weed killer, which makes the job easier.
Next, in our weekly games review, Jules tries Rise of the Robots on the PC. And still to come in the net, saving software for posterity, plus Connected Kington, the Herefordshire village that's getting wired.
Plop! Skittle! Hap! Wah! Plop! Skittle! Hap! Wah! Plop! Skittle! Hap! Wah!
Steve, I think you better do the game review. She's gone.
Just can't get the staff these days, can you, Dan? Well, all right. I'm here to do a game review on Rise of the Robots on a computer called the PC. In this game, you have to fight baddie robots. Now, not all robots are baddies. Some are quite nice, really. But these robots are totally jarred off with life, and you've decided to keep them unhappy by beating them up. I'm worried about her. This type of game is often called a beat-em-up, because all you have to do is beat them up. You have lots of ways of controlling your Cyberman character with low kicks, high kicks, medium kicks, punches, and some more punches. Oh, and many other things. The robots learn how you fight and defend themselves accordingly, so you have to be quite skillful to kill these unhappy creatures. This game has great pictures, and some more great pictures, and I like these pictures as well. Very nice pictures. However, it is mindless violence. There you go, parents. This game's fun, though, it says here. It's my all-time favourite beat-em-up. Very decent. I don't like these games. But out of 10, I have to give it 9.
Welcome to my educational slot. Dorset. It's very big and heavy. No one has yet managed to wash it, until now.
Wow!
You see, no one had ever checked the label on the back. Out of 10, this game got 9. I thought we did that earlier.
There's a serious paradox about the situation in which we find ourselves. The vast majority of computers rely on magnetic media for storing information, and magnetic media are impermanent. And the paradox is that this information age, of which we're all supposedly part, may in fact leave less trace of itself than civilizations that have gone before.
It's a dilemma that committed computer collectors are well aware of.
If you want an Apple II to have colour, that's essential.
It's just a habit that I've got now that if I see a computer that I haven't got, I've got to have it. It gets so much so that I travel 200 miles just to buy a computer because I haven't got it.
I've got a package here from a machine called an HX20. It's an early Epson computer, sort of probably a computer come hybrid calculator. This particular package here, this actually hasn't even been opened, and it's software that doesn't come on a floppy disk or a tape. It actually comes on a chip.
My name is Stephen Walters. We are currently in my bedroom which is sort of bedroom stroke computer room, and also sort of headquarters of the Classic Computer Club. The Classic Computer Club is a small elite organisation of people who like to collect and maintain old computers. These can be either handheld machines right up to mini computers, sort of fridge freezer size. I've got one or two of those around here somewhere. And it's been running now for about 3 years. We collect software for as many of the old machines as possible. It is difficult because a lot of the software will degrade. It literally rots.
So if you're thinking that magnetic media software is a good investment, you may want to think again.
There are two reasons why software is not yet collectible. One is quantity. There's so much available in the marketplace. And secondly is space. You've got to have hardware to drive the software, and some of those big old computers take a lot of space. I must admit I don't see a value or a marketplace for software at the moment. That's not sold.
The packaging, the boxes, the appearance of these of the software is in fact culturally significant. What makes it software is actually the information organization on the disk. So we have two problems. One is to preserve the software, and secondly, to ensure that we have contemporary hardware on which to run it.
But hardware has a limited lifespan too. Pegasus, built by Ferranti engineers in the 1950s, reads paper tape software. It was used for number crunching and research, but the machine will not go on working forever.
In 100 years' time, it's very unlikely that Pegasus, behind me, will be running. So, what we've started doing is exploring ways of not only extending the physical operational life of this particular machine, but of capturing, if you like, the essence, the persona of the machine, by programming a modern machine to behave in precisely the same way as the old machine. And this has promises to not only extend the life, the operational life of early machines, but also give us access to period software. What we have here is a very precise simulation running on a modern platform, that is a 486, which replicates the behavior of Pegasus very, very precisely. What the simulation allows you to do is actually to operate the switches on the console of the simulation in precisely the same way as you would on the big machine. So the hand is moved by operating either a mouse or keyboard switches. We've now gone to fetch a paper tape out of the paper tape drawer. This has been selected and is now placed on the tape reader. The machine is then started, and the tape is read through the tape reader, and the output appears as a paper tape on the right-hand side. That is then fed to a teleprinter, and the result is printed out, and that appears at the bottom of the screen. And the traces on the screens at the center of the picture, the little green grass patterns, are exact replicas of what would appear on a real-life screen with a machine operating in real time. All we can do as responsible members of this particular generation is to preserve and conserve as much as we can and pass the baton to the next generation in the hope that the cavalry will arrive in time and somehow we can enshrine not only these machines but the software in some more permanent form. What simulation offers us, if you like, is a kind of temporary immortality. It allows us to delay the evil day where we have to say, consign the stuff to oblivion, because there's nothing we can do with it.
Kington, a small market town in Herefordshire, is the site of a unique experiment to find out how high-end computer and telecommunication systems will affect a rural community.
The Kington project is undoubtedly unique in its nature, not just because of the type of project it is, but also the fact that two very large commercial organisations, BT and Apple Computer, have got together with two large government departments, DTI and the RDC. We all have our
gained our inspiration from the project and from what Kington have proposed.
Apple and BT and the DTI and the RDC decided to run a competition to introduce the whole range of information technology, computers, telephone lines, hardware, software, expert help, everything to do with bringing IT into an area, into a rural community. They invited a number of towns to compete in the competition. Kington put forward a really good bid team. A lot of people got involved in the thing and really pushed it forward, and we won the competition.
What we're going to do in Kington is take a benchmark for how people view and how people are using the technology, how they're using computers, and how it's affected what they do. So we'll try and get a quantitative, but that's quite difficult, so more a qualitative understanding of how they're going to, or how their business lives have changed.
As well as being an experiment in terms of helping on the new technology side, it's an experiment in terms of releasing the potential of communities to use that new technology and try to determine their own destiny. So whatever we may think, as soon as you set loose this experiment, the community itself will broaden it out from a lot wider parameters than we've actually set.
The DTI's interest was in this project was as a means of raising awareness of the potential uses of telecommunications and IT technology. We wanted it to benefit the community itself, but also to create lessons for other communities and to show what they could do with this sort of technology.
We are trying to extend, through using both the communications element and the IT element, through into a broad spectrum of individuals, groups and businesses within the community, so that they can make use of that technology, really only to be limited by their own imagination.
What were your hopes for the scheme and your participation in it?
Well, initially I couldn't believe the amount of computers and the high technology that suddenly descended upon Kington. I had a great idea of a health education scheme based around nutrition, involving schools, nurses, doctors, myself obviously.
How would you have done that?
Well, I wanted to write a kind of database that people could plug into, people sat at home, people on the street, the kids in the school, teachers, health professionals, everybody could contribute into and also gain from. There would be a central computing base, hopefully based in the telecentre, and there would be satellite computers and keyboards, etc., that people could tap into. It would be a living thing, basically.
It's nice, isn't it? So when you heard that the computers were coming to town, what did you think it could do for you at the hotel?
John is very much interested in putting the operational side of it on, accounting, stock taking, perhaps even reservations. That's mainly the side I do, and I tend to think that I do it better manually, and I wanted a computer to do something for us that we couldn't do. And as far as I was concerned, that was marketing. So we wanted to developing a marketing program that would specifically benefit this hotel.
So John, what do you actually have here in the hotel, and how do you use it?
Well, we've been told it's a very all-powerful computer, and people would sort of sell their back teeth for something like this.
And it's got the tourism application on it as well, so that if a tourist comes into the hotel and doesn't know where he or she is going to stay, he can call up a Kington Information Centre programme on the screen, which will feature self-catering accommodation, hotels, bed and breakfast, and it will describe the hotel and the facilities it has to offer. In the end, we hope that he will also be able to book a room through it.
So as somebody who has worked in computers, when you heard about the project, you presumably thought, oh, goody, goody, I'm going to get my hands on all this stuff. But as a farmer, what good is it to you?
Yes, when the project was first evolved, I thought, hello, this is very interesting. It happens to be based on Apple Macintoshes, which I wasn't familiar with, but I didn't see that as a problem. I thought,
computer's a computer. You know, if you can use one, you can use any. And so I was already looking at what applications farmers will need or need now and possibly would need in the future. So here we have a map of our farm, the farmhouse here, which is just over there, and the fields which are ours, which run up through the valley, up through here. And we'll have the ability to maintain the records of this machine. So the idea of using the technology and the idea of a pen as opposed to a computer, the idea of farmers using computers is fraught with problems, shall we say, but the idea of using a pen-based computer where you write the values in is very easy for anybody to use this type of technology.
Would you have had this, Newton, without the project in the centre of town?
The project, as it's a high-profile project, has meant that people within the area have been able to see and use the type of equipment which is quite state-of-the-art, which otherwise you may not have seen for another 5 or 10 years' time, or allowed access to. So from that point of view, the project has definitely assisted in promoting the use of computers to people within the locality.
This is not short-term. You can't expect great results in the first year, or even within 2 years. I think you're looking at a longer time perspective. And we very much see the equipment and the money and the technical assistance as a seeding operation, as an investment.
One of the ways of looking at Kington is you mustn't view it as a prototype, you should view it as an exemplar. Clearly, you couldn't put this amount of resource into the thousands of small towns and villages we've got across England, Wales and Scotland, but what we can do is pick out from the actual period of the initiative what actually works, so we can pass on to other people approaches for dealing with their own problems.
The sort of job that you would have done in a high-rise office block in London can now be done out here. Why commute to London? Most people who commute to London sit in front of computer screens and keyboards and work on screen. Why do that there when you can do the work here? Move the work to you rather than moving yourself to London.
Coming up after the credits, NetCetera. Start your video now. Or for a printed NetCetera and details of the BBC Networking Club and other network services, send a stamped addressed envelope to this address. The Net, Programme 7, BSS, PO Box 7, London, W3 6XJ. Next week in The Net, biochips and nanotechnology, how computer visionaries hope to make us immortal. Why so few women are attracted to computing. Benjamin Woolley gets creative with a computer and a camcorder. And the American Army shows us round its vast virtual battlefield. And finally from The Net...
Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how.
There's no doubt about it that a little bit of net surfing is good recreation and informative. The internet opens up an ordinary MP's access to the world in a much greater way than ever before. The other day I noticed that the White House had actually got the title of the Royal Yacht wrong and had called it the Royal Yacht Britannica, and I thought I perhaps ought to post and correct them and point out it's the Royal Yacht Britannia.